Hello everyone, how y'all doing? So I guess in the theme of the most recent direction that I decided to go about, which is more so talking about other medium besides video games, and then I think I specifically mentioned anime in my previous video. I might as well talk about this, which is sort of like a breaking news where it's been reported that Crunchyroll apparently suffered a data breach, and the most concerning thing about this data breach is not just the fact that there was one, because listen, at the end of the day, a lot of the services that you use, at some point, they're going to experience a data breach. It just is what it is. But I think the most important part is what information ended up getting leaked out. And if we're to believe this to be true, which is IP addresses, email addresses, credit card details, and customer analytics data, personal identifiable information. This is very concerning, definitely. This is extremely concerning, and so far, Crunchyroll hasn't really commented on this. But if this is presumably real, then I think they should definitely address this because this is very serious. Now, of course, I guess the real question that I do want to open up is whether or not I think this is real. Because at the end of the day, whenever there's a report of some kind of like hack or data breach, then unless we all have access to that exact data that's been breached, then it kind of just becomes a situation where we have to trust other people's accounting. Like in this case in specific, I don't know if there's some kind of data available, like on some website or on the dark night or in a dark web, not dark night. Sorry. I don't know if that information is available. Maybe it is. I haven't looked into this too much. Might end up having to investigate this a bit further because, for example, I'm seeing these screenshots, but once again, I don't know if this is some kind of like information that's already publicly available somewhere on the internet, and I just have to dig in a little bit further, or if this is just information. This is information that was exclusively obtained by this organization. I'm not entirely sure. I'm going to assume that this might be public somewhere. At least that's what I. At least that's what I want to believe. Because well, I mean, actually, I don't want to believe that, but I don't know. I'll have to look into this a bit further. But yeah, until I verify this as far as whether or not it's real, and also until Crunchyroll actually acknowledges if this is real or not, then for the most part, I'm going to treat this mostly as a rumor, not because I necessarily think it's not real. It's more so I have to be a little bit cautious with anything that's reported on the internet. But regardless of all of that, I will say one thing though, which is even though I'm not going to concretely say if it's one way or the other, I can at the very least entertain an idea. And I will say though that there are reasons for why I believe this most likely is real, because in general, when I was reading through the report, the impression that I essentially ended up getting was that there was one employee from an outsourcing company called Telus or Telus. I don't know how to spell this. He eventually was a victim of some kind of phishing attempt, and as a result, his computer ended up getting compromised, and the threat actor ended up gaining access to the platform that they have. And I think at some point they mentioned Okta, and I'm a little bit familiar with Okta. I've worked with that in the past, and so if that is to be believed, then I do actually find it convincing that someone who would have compromised an employee's access to the information, which in this case it's Crunchyroll, assuming that Crunchyroll is a client of TLIS, then that employee who would have had access to that information for the job that he needs, then in that scenario, I do actually believe that this threat actor here, this bad actor, might have actually gained access to Crunchyroll's environment. Like that does actually seem like a believable scenario. Is it actually real? I'm not sure, but that does actually seem very believable. Now, what I will say though is that a lot of that is true, but I guess the more so the thing that I did actually want to talk about is whether or not I think our accounts are safe. Like for example, every time there's a data breach, one of the first things that people like to highlight is change your password right now, all that stuff. And I'll get into the password thing a little for a little bit, but Firstly, in regards to IP addresses, that one I would 100% believe. Email addresses would also 100% believe. I mean, it would be like the email address is essentially the sign-in ID for signing into Crunchyroll, so that makes sense. Customer analytics data. I'm not entirely sure what this is referring to, so I'm not going to comment too much on this. I do, however, want to comment on the credit card thing because this one is probably more concerning than actually a password. Because if it's a because like if you're if like if all you have to do is change a password, you can do that in a few seconds. Credit cards details, on the other hand, if people do actually gain access to this information, that would actually be very alarming. But I do want to maybe demystify a little bit about this because again, I haven't looked into the actual data that's been released, that's been breached, so a lot of what I'm going to say is going to be based on speculation. But one thing I do think it's worth noting about the credit card details part is that a lot of the times, with a lot of these services, the information that's actually stored anywhere for, like for example, in the case of the outsourcing company thing, a lot of the times the employees that work on these, they don't usually have access to the full credit card details. Like at most they will only know like maybe like the last four digits or something like that. They don't usually have the absolute full number, including the CVV. And so while this part is believable, I will however say that I'm not sure if you're gonna suddenly see like a bunch of transactions coming out of your credit card solely based on the information that would have been stored. I mean, I'm not saying that it's not believable, but I am saying is that, a lot of the times when you make purchases online or anything like that, they're gonna ask for more than just the last four digits. That's all I'm gonna say. And so, again, you should be concerned, but I also kind of wanna, maybe ease up some people's concerns because, like, I just want to make it clear that, like, your full credit card details is probably not exposed somewhere on the internet. So, just want to let you know about that. Or maybe it is. I'm not sure. I really hope it's not. But usually, with a lot of these outsourcing companies, they don't usually have full access to that data, and even much more internal personnel from Crunchyroll probably also don't have the full credit card details. And so I don't know if I'd be too concerned about this. Now, as for the password, this is where, um, like I said earlier, changing that is obviously the easiest part. But one thing I do want to say is that you definitely should change the password. But something that I did want to note is that this breach apparently happened back in March 12th, and realistically, if there were any accounts that were going to get hacked as a result of that, then I'm fairly certain that by this point it's probably not going to happen because, according to this tweet right here, um, this threat actor's access to Crunchyroll service eventually ended up getting revoked after 24 hours. And realistically, it would only be within this 24 hours that anyone would have hacked an account. Because at the end of the day, um, credit card details, technically speaking, you know, you could maybe know the last four digits as well as whether or not it's like a Visa or a MasterCard, which, it's still very sensitive information, but, you know, I guess you would have access to something. Passwords, on the other hand, that one is even less likely because, like, um, usually, like, first of all, passwords are encrypted, and so even if even if there was some kind of like even if there was some kind of platform in which you can see someone's account profile, like someone's password is obviously not going to get exposed anywhere. Like there's not going to be an entire section that says this client's password. Like that's not really how it works. Like and even if something like that were to exist, again, passwords are protected. Like the most that someone would be able to see is someone's hash, but even then, that information again is usually not really publicly exposed to anyone, and so you should change your password. But at the same time, I'm also gonna say that like, I don't think your account is gonna get compromised at least at this moment. But there is maybe something that makes me believe that your account could still be at risk of getting compromised, which is if someone were to contact some kind of support platform for Crunchyroll, and they try to claim that they're the owner of the account, and depending on how much information Crunchyroll may request from that user to help them recover the account, that amount of information that's there, that's already publicly released somewhere on the internet, might be enough for whoever the customer support agent is to be convinced that the person they're speaking to is the actual owner of the account, and through that the account may end up getting compromised. But if something like that were to happen, then I'm sorry, but like changing the password is not really going to change anything. Like changing the password right now is not really going to change the outcome of that, because if there's some kind of customer support agent from Crunchyroll that can just easily send like password reset links to people, then changing the password now is not really gonna help a whole heck of a lot. But I guess I'm not really sure how that's gonna end up. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not entirely sure how things are gonna work out through that avenue. That would be a little bit concerning, and hopefully right now Crunchyroll and every single company here involved, they're gonna reassess all the procedures that they have for handling this, just so they can be extra precautious. But honestly, I wouldn't say that I'm very trustful over a lot of these companies when it comes to that. So honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if people, after all of this, became compelled to just not even bother using Crunchyroll anymore, because if their information is going to be easily breached like this, then like it makes you kind of wonder if it's even worth it to continue subscribing to Crunchyroll, if it's so easy for things like this to happen. But yeah, I don't know. I guess that's a choice that everyone individually will have to make for themselves. Me personally, I'm still gonna keep an eye on the story, because Crunchyroll is already facing a lawsuit that I think had something to do with them. I think is it because they were like selling people's data or something like that. I actually forgot the details of the lawsuit, but like they're already going through an existing lawsuit, and so this right here is even more pile of garbage to be added to, to their backs. Which, I mean, at the end of the day, if this is real, they should definitely address. Like, I don't think this should just go unnoticed. Of course, if there's any like ransoms that end up they end up spawning as a result of all of this, I don't think Crunchyroll should be paying for those ransoms, because I don't think doing so is actually a good idea. I think it more so just kind of enables the behavior of these threat actors, and even then, like, you never know if they're actually just going to, you never know if they're actually just going to remain under promise and not just reveal that information at some point in the future. And so they definitely shouldn't be paying any ransoms. But yeah, that's really all I have to share. And best case scenario, none of this is real. Worst case scenario, this is real, and I do have reasons to believe this most likely is real. And yeah, do stay safe.